Good morning, everybody. Live and in charge and in your Tuesday morning, right in there, whether you like it or not. That's what we do. This morning, I'm joined by none other than Mbulelo and Lebang, and we are here to look after you until sort of 8 o'clock-ish, and then you're on your own. You have to go into the big, dangerous world all on your own. But for at least the next 2 hours, we'll keep you company until then. So, we've got a friend of mine joining us a bit later on. She sent me a voice note the other day. Her name is Cathrine, and she's a mom of 5. So she takes a take from you, Lebang. She's the mom of 5, and
5 of her own kids.
All her own kids.
Jesus.
I know it's major. And she said to me, she's just so sick of moms getting the short end of the stick, and moms being treated badly by everybody, and people judging moms when they have to take matters into their own hands and make decisions about the kids. And anyway, so I said to Cathrine, you know what? I'm not going to play your voice note on the show. Rather, come on and explain it, because I think there are lots of moms who would understand it. So she's going to be with us a little bit later on. Yeah, and we've got plenty of other good stuff this morning. This is Us, which is our second installment. We started it last week. It's something which hopefully will make being South African interesting, positive, cool, and something which we'll all understand a whole lot better by the end of this process, and also something that we can use to share our stories and to build something positive. I don't know how you feel, but I'm feeling like we need to inject some of that spirit that South Africa had in the mid-90s, when we actually were building something rather than breaking something down. And we've forgotten a little bit of that, mostly because our politicians, and they do deserve a lot of the blame, but our politicians have been breaking things for a long time, and now we need to build them up. They're not going to do it without our initiative. So that's exactly what we're doing. This is Us coming up a little later on. Mbulelo's also got a really interesting week of sport. He's not going to be with us from next week, though, because he's going down to do the Otter Trail. You're hosting it or emceeing it or something, right? You're not. Yep. You're not doing the event, even though I think you have done the event before, haven't you?
I've run the trail, but I haven't run the event. So I don't do anything that's short stuff. It's 42K. I do the long stuff, 100K, 100 plus. You know.
You're sucker for punishment.
Well said.
That's not something I would do. Okay, yeah, I know. Lebang, just say what you really think. Go on. I know you. I can see it on your face, but you're not saying it. Go on. I mean, people who are listening and not watching need to know what I'm seeing.
No, I think it's great, Mbu, that you're out here doing things that are over 100K. Don't make us feel bad for not really caring for those kinds of things. Like, good on you, bud. All the best with that, but we will miss you. We definitely will miss you.
Yes. Well, haven't you? You've got. Speaking of trail running, you've got a dude on the show today, who's
Kane Riley.
Kane Riley. Now, who is he? Tell us.
So he's a Cape Townian, like through and through guy, but the quintessential Cape Townian guy that you're thinking of, like that schwacker dude, like just vibes, but just like a monster.
A name like Kane Riley, you can't not be one of those kinds of guys.
Exactly.
Right?
But the guy is a monster on mountains, just like absolute trail running. In fact, a running legend in those parts. And that guy's doing it. So we'll have him on, and we got the Otter Trail. So he'll be trying to get his first win at the Otter, which is quite a big thing. By the way, and speaking of This Is Us, is if you are South African and you've never been to Tsitsikamma, do yourself a favor.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's some of the most protected land in the world.
Okay, so I have been there, but certainly not as part of a race or anything. And it is magnificent. It's really very beautiful. Samantha says, the Otter Trail is on my bucket list. I'm hoping to do it next year. Enjoy. Well, that's nice. That sounds good, Samantha. That's go. Cool. You're going to join Mbulelo. That's what you're going to do. I was just going to say something, and I've gone completely blank. Oh, yeah. My favorite Bible quote, Mbulelo, and you know how religious I am, right?
So me too, yes.
My favorite Bible quote is this one. only the evil man runneth when nothing is chasing him. You must never forget that.
If Gareth says it.
We did an event when I was at one of the radio stations where we had a whole bunch of people walking or running or whatever through town, and it was meant to just get people up and running, and it was to raise money for charity and all of that stuff. And I remember I said to my grandfather, who was still alive at the time, I said, "What should I call my team?" He said, "I know what you should call it," but he said you should definitely have a banner that says, "Devil take the hindmost." So I had all these people on my team carrying banners saying, "Devil take the hindmost."
That's awesome.
Sounds very culty, Gareth.
Very cult. Listen, if I started a cult, it would be hugely successful. I can promise you that. I'd be a very good cult leader. I'd be extremely good at that stuff. I don't know if I'm cut out for all the like weird rituals and the stupid rules, but I could always ask you guys to help me. We could do that together.
Maybe Mbulelo would definitely be the guy for that kind of stuff. And we just do the talking. Like, we'll just be like the people in the front. Hey guys, join us. It'll be fun. And then Mbulelo can write down all the instructions.
We need a performer. So actually what we need is someone who would, like a hype man. We need someone like that to get the crowd going.
Yeah.
Then we need a couple of rules that are particular to our cult, right? And they need to be things like, for example, you never cut your hair on a Tuesday. It's going to be arbitrary. It's going to be totally arbitrary. Yeah. Or you must not drink water for 6 hours on a Wednesday. And you make up some reason why that is. You say, well, when, in the Old Testament, Aaron hit the rock and water came out, it was a Thursday. And therefore, if you do it on a Wednesday, the rock doesn't produce the water, the devil does. And, you just make shit up and people will go, sounds good to me. And you have to have a couple of holy texts, which we can write. We can discover, like the Mormons did. We can just discover holy texts in hidden places, even though we put them there and hid them ourselves.
Like, how will they ever know anyway?
Yeah, we need, what we'll do with you, Lebang, is we'll dress you up. We'll gray your hair. We'll put like talcum powder all over your hair and make it like all like old and gray. And we'll get a special effects makeup artist to make you look like a terribly, terribly old woman. But you'll be the wise old woman. And you'll dispense like one-liners. You'll say things like, "Never when the moon is high in the sky shalt thou try to conceive of a child." And then, you must speak in this like witch voice.
Yeah. And you must just dress me in a white old dress and I can walk with a wooden stick.
There we go.
Sign me up.
Sit down. And you'll sit down in the middle of the room and it'll be a big circular room and people will gather around you and you'll suddenly start sprouting forth in a foreign alien language and people go, "Oh my God, she's touched by the gods."
No, but we laugh, but it's so real. Gareth, these things are so real. I've been seeing on the timeline, like girls coming out and saying, "I've been looking for prophecies and I found this church and now I'm in this hotel with this pastor. What do I do?" Sweetie, it's a cult.
In the hotel with the pastor. Oh my God, that's gone too far.
It's hectic.
No, but I've said this before. All cults are just about men sleeping with women. Eventually, if you look at all of them, eventually it's just, I am the only penis you can see. And, oh man, these chicks are just suckers for it as well. Like, maybe I'm doing something wrong.
That's like, for men, that is when you've either gone insane or you've reached optimal power in whatever your community is the moment you are the solo penis in that division. There's no one else. It's just about you. And you pick and choose from the girls who have been brainwashed. And that's how it works. And for the women, of course, there becomes this thing. I'm speaking obviously about, women who are totally brainwashed and totally into the cult at this point. But for them, it becomes like who he has slept with most recently because she is favored among us. It's the magic of his stick touching you, so to speak. Tracy says, "Lebang the Grey shall be her name." Yes.
Yes, my child.
There we go. You need to have a wicked laugh. That's all.
I don't have one, Gareth. You'll have to teach me that. That's terrible.
That's the kind of thing we need.
There it is.
That's so good.
There it is.
I know.
You have nailed it. That
Patent
is
witch laugh.
awesome.
Anyway.
That is awesome.
Yeah, but these cults are everywhere. And you know what bothers me is when times are tough and people are obviously going through a whole lot of stuff at the moment because of coronavirus and lockdowns and losing jobs and the economy not being great and everything else. And the pressures, the normal day-to-day pressures that people have anyway, when all of those things are not part of the equation. And when things are tough, people look for answers and they want easy answers for complicated questions. And often these cults will spring up, you know, the guy who sprayed doom in people's faces, the one who made them eat grass, the one who made them play with snakes. You know, there are all these lunatics out there who, for better or worse, I mean, they obviously, they do quite well out of this. I mean, there's some of these pastors who've become extremely rich. We even spoke about one yesterday with Leanne. And they're not always in the Christian faith. Some of them are kind of all about the amadlozi, and they have special ways of getting to them and helping you connect with your ancestors or with a dead relative. You know, there's people with the Ouija boards. You know, those ones who...
Real.
You remember that guy, John Edwards? I think it was John Edwards. He used to do a show where he'd hook you up with your crossing
I loved
over.
It.
So he would hook you up with your dead relatives.
Yeah.
And then you would you'd be able to have a conversation with them through him. And it was always like, well, I'm picking up something with an M. And you'd go, well, I did have an aunt 3 times removed whose name started with an M. But wait, maybe they mean the M in the middle of my grandmother's name. Yes, that must be it. Yes. And he goes, yes, that's it. It's your grandmother. It's definitely your grandmother. And she wants you to know that you are not alone. Oh, my God. Really? I'm not alone? Oh, that's so great. Thank you, Gran. And these women burst into tears and these men start like falling to their knees. And it's just incredible.
I ate it up growing up, Gareth. I won't lie to you. I sat there and I was like, this guy is the guy. He knows all the answers. How does he do this so well? And obviously this was before, you know, social media. Imagine now. Your people are still getting duped.
Well, yeah, but I think maybe less, because I think there's so much information out there now that the only people who are allowing themselves, because you have to allow yourself to get duped. The only people who are allowing themselves to get duped are the really ignorant one. And I heard ignorant ones. I heard a great quote the other day. I actually saved it on my phone. Listen to this. A fact is information minus emotion, right? An opinion is information plus experience. Ignorance is an opinion lacking information. And stupidity is an opinion that ignores a fact. I thought that was very, very sharp. But you know, these days, if you don't find out about things, if you aren't slightly more curious than the average person, if you don't go and look things up or decide that you're going to find more information. I mean, there's so many free resources online as well. We're not talking about having to enroll and get a degree in something. You can read any classics. You can go and listen to podcasts on philosophy. You can find information about any branch of science, technology, mathematics, engineering, language, whatever it is you're interested in. You can find all that stuff now. So the only person who's to blame if you fall for bullshit in 2021 is you. There's no one else.
Gareth, it's what you're saying. People are desperate. People just want some sort of resolve, some sort of solution where they don't need to do much. They just want to sit back and be told, here's a glass of milk, drink this milk and everything will be better again. That's what people want. So they're willing to just take what they can get.
Well, look at what this coronavirus has done to people in the hope of feeling safe, just feeling safe, not actually being safe. You know, just the illusion of safety, that word, which has been, I think safe has been used more than any other word in the last 2 years. And it's definitely been used more in the last 2 years than in any other point in human history, because we've never been safe. There's always been something trying to kill us. It's either other humans, or it's disease, or it's poverty, or it's war, or it's volcanoes, or animals, or something. So humans have never been safe. Let's face it. But that word safe has been thrown out there and used as a lure. It's been used as a carrot or as a stick by governments and by the medical establishment and by people who want to get you to comply. And they've said, well, if you do these things, if you put on this little strip of fabric, which still lets through all the viruses on Earth, if you put out this little strip of fabric, if you wash your hands in this stuff that smells clean, then nothing will make you sick. If you keep more than 2 meters away from other humans, you will be safer. And of course, none of it is true. It's all total and utter bullshit. And yet it's been enough for some people to completely change their behavior just because they want easy answers to complicated questions. So it's happening all around us. And by the way, while we're talking about masks and things, Mbulelo wants to put out a public service announcement about masks. And this is something I've felt for a little while. Do you want to do this?
Yeah. Listen here. Stopping a knob, because stop leaving your masks everywhere. And you know what I can't stand? Oh, sorry, I forgot. Like, stop leaving your mask everywhere. It's friggin' disgusting.
Gross.
Now I've got to pick it up, and you've been breathing in it. And I know you think you're special because your breath is obviously, I don't know, like was made by the Teletubbies and it's going to make children feel better. No, it's disgusting. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to touch somewhere where you've been spitting. Your freaking snot is in there. Stop leaving your masks everywhere. How common is it in offices now? Like whenever I was at the bank the other day, just 2 masks on the. There we go. Where do I sit now? What am I doing now? There was a whole bat incident in China, and now I'm a part of it. What the hell is this?
My worst situation with those, because I don't really deal with masks very often. I only put them on when I go to the shops, and occasionally I'll put on the show, like, I'll pretend to hold it over my face when I walk into a restaurant, because of course once you sit down, the virus can't get you. But people put the mask on the restaurant table. Now, you're going to be eating on that table. That mask is chock full of all kinds of horrible shit from your gut and your mouth and your rotten teeth and your nasal cavities and God knows what else. And then you're going to put down like my knife and fork right next to that. Oh no. And that's not a safety issue. That's just like a general hygiene.
People don't use mouthwash. People don't use mouthwash, so they probably have these disgusting gums.
What are you meant to do? Put it in your pocket? Because that's what I do.
Figure it out. It doesn't need to be on the table at a restaurant.
Where do you put it?
But people are gross. People are gross.
Put it in my pocket. What do you do, Lebang?
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely put it in my pocket or my bag. But occasionally, if I do put it on the table, I apologize, Mbulelo. I didn't realize that I, number one, was putting it on the table. Number two, that I was offending you on this level. Yeah. I'm just busy going about my day. I'm opening my laptop. I'm typing. I'm breastfeeding. I'm changing a diaper. All of that with a mask on, not a chance. So when I do take it off, I'm not naturally just going to be like, oh, let me just stuff that in there. Mbulelo's going to see this. No, I just kind of put it where I can. And unfortunately, sometimes it will end up on a table. Forgive me, Mbulelo. Forgive me is what I'm asking. Just don't be this upset. It's going to happen. Not everybody is able to control that, in the way that you do. Please forgive us. Well, we're only human.
Robin says, buy a fanny pack for your stuff. Hell no.
I'm looking for one. I'm looking for a sweet leather one. Yeah. No. It's a good look. I'm in that. I'm 35 now. It's about time. I'm looking for a sweet leather one. I'm going to save up and get a proper cool one. Yeah, like the 80s.
I love Carl's comment here, and I'm probably I'm so on his side on this one. The best part of COVID is that it exposed all the people who don't know how to exercise logic. People in cars on their own with masks on. People running on their own in the street with a mask on. Yeah, shame. And I saw a photograph on, it was Twitter, I think. Must have been. of a woman in a shop in America. She's one of those who's wearing the mask and the face visor, and she's got this white hair. She's obviously an older lady, and she's got this white hair piled on top of her head, and then she has a sign on a piece of paper, like an A4 piece of paper that's pinned to her back that says, "Please stay 2 meters away from me," on her back. Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
I'm like, honey, this pandemic has come at just the right time for you to disguise all the other mental illnesses you have, because there's some problems going on in that woman's head. Can you imagine what it's like living with that woman?
Yeah, geez, she has a sign on her. Wowie. I mean, having said that, let's not fall into the correlation causation error here. Is that we mustn't think, oh, COVID's exposed all of us. It's like, no, the world has been getting progressively more obese, and we've had better information over the last 50 years. We're getting fatter. So people don't, and the evidence is clear. I don't care what you say. Oh, no, the evidence says, because we have better information, doesn't mean we're going to use it.
We've said on this show from the beginning, largely because Mbulelo and I are so against fat people, and we're proudly about being against fat people. We really are. I know that it's not a popular, politically correct thing, but everyone else in the health establishment, and particularly in governments all over the world, with one or two exceptions, and I will give them credit where they have spoken out about this, they won't mention it. It's like that's like the big elephant in the room they don't talk about is the actual elephants in the room, because those people are putting themselves in an enormous way of harm, right? Because enormous, and I mean that word in every sense, because that's the single biggest factor is obesity. Obesity and age, I think, rank about the same. But if you've died from COVID, those two things are the most important factors that determine whether you'll survive or not. And now, obviously, if you've been vaccinated, that helps to keep you from death's door. But you might still get COVID, but you won't necessarily die from it or be hospitalized, put on a ventilator, any of that stuff. But when we started this thing, before we had the vaccines, these people who were fat and people who were very old were at most risk, and people who were fat and old were at the most risk of all. So the fact that we don't talk about that, and that just gets a pass because it's not politic to talk about people's weight, that to me is a great failure of the health system. You can't pretend that doesn't exist as a problem, especially in a country like ours where we have such an obesity rate. It's a huge problem.
But don't act shocked. Sorry, Lebang. Let's not act shocked that people are acting stupid. We've got better information. And for me, it's not even about fat. Generally, not always, generally 99% of the time, you're fat, you're unhealthy, right? We've got more information now and we're getting fatter. So I'm not shocked that people act like they're acting in COVID. We've been doing it now for 40 years.
Yeah, it's not really anything new, this response. It's kind of, can I pin it down to the natural human reaction? We don't really care much for getting more information or for using it wisely. We've got access to it, great, but so what? I'm going to sit here and continue to eat my 3 pizzas a day, and there's nothing you can do about it, and that's that on that. I mean, when I see people in their cars driving with their masks on, as soon as I get into my car, I rip that thing off because I'm like, how are you driving with your mask on? I feel like a freaking surgeon. You know, when you finish with surgery, or well, how it looks in Grey's Anatomy anyway, as soon as that surgeon just seals up the body, they go, done. That's how I feel getting into a car. So if you're still wearing a mask in a car, good on you, do your thing, but like, let that be a you thing. Let that be a you thing. It's just that weird energy.
But you did say it just now, and it's still the truest thing said this morning, and there've been a few true things said this morning, if we do say that ourselves. Lebang, you said people just want that glass of milk, that if you drink this, you'll be fine, and you'll be safe, and you'll be healthy, and everything will go well. And there is no such thing. So just stop it. Just stop it. Mm-hmm. Tracy says, we stop searching when we find what fits our narrative. Most people anyway. That is so true. Yeah. Nico says, gotta love those fat people that drink a Diet Coke while eating a whole pizza. Yeah. I saw a guy, this Kala, he says, I saw a guy this weekend who lost 25 kilograms with COVID. I bet there's a lot less obesity in South Africa after 1 million cases. Well, I don't
With
know,
COVID.
Kala. I mean, I don't
I think
see...
he's being a little facetious there, Gareth.
Yeah, I know, but still, I mean, I'm trying to take him at his word on this one, because people, of course, don't change their behavior. That's too hard. That's much too difficult. It's much easier to just complain or hope someone else solves your problems, and you know what it's like. Anyway, we've got lots of things to get into this morning. Among other things, Lebang is concerned that we have an obsession with alcohol. And maybe we've got time for this just before the headlines, because this is something that I've thought of a lot. And I sometimes wonder when you cross that line from being someone who has a fun time to being someone who's an alcoholic. I know people who are alcoholics, even though they might not admit to it. I've sometimes wondered on a particularly big binge drinking weekend, like, am I an alcoholic? People think about this, but what spurred this question on in your mind?
Well, it was a long weekend, number one. And, for some of us, it was like, yay, we work so hard. We're going to play so hard. And that's what we found ourselves doing. But I also found myself really just being surrounded by people that just play. So there's no work. It's just play. And every single day now. And this long weekend is just the perfect excuse to just get lit, turn up, and not give a rat's ass about anything else. So then I just started thinking about like how we got here. And I'm just like, well, for the most part, we've been doing this for the most of our lives. If you think back to maybe when you started partying, we started young. We just started using alcohol casually. But now it's like there's a bit of a dependency. And I do worry that maybe as a nation, we have a problem with alcohol. And you see it in December. December is this hugely celebrated month. Why? Because we're all just going to turn up every single day. That's a bit of a red flag for me. Like, when are we going to like stop and admit that maybe we're being a bit too dependent on alcohol? Like 85% of my timeline this whole weekend, in fact, yesterday, everybody was broken. Everyone's like, oh, dragging my feet. Why did I do this to my liver? Oh. Cool. Have fun. But this is now like every single weekend. I'm just worried that maybe there's certain things we're not dealing with.
I went out for dinner on Friday night. It's so interesting you brought this up, because it made me think similar things on Friday. And I'd completely forgotten about it by this morning. So you've just jogged my memory. We went out for dinner on Friday night, funnily enough, with old Ben Karpinski and my sister and her boyfriend. And we had a dinner in Pretoria. And then afterwards, Ben and I thought, well, we'd go to the local drinking establishment and see what's happening there. So we got there at probably about 8:30, 8:45, which means, if curfew comes in at 11, they probably do last rounds at 10. So there was maybe half an hour or so before they called the last rounds, and people were squeezing in the drinks. So first of all, we arrived and we were not drunk, but people had been going since like 4, because they wanted to squeeze in the maximum amount of drinking, right? And it's obsessive. It's not like they were just there to have a drink to kind of mellow them out so that they could have interesting conversations with people. They were all loud and drunk and in your face at 8:30, easily, like hammered, not making sense, like hammered. And I said to Ben, this is not going to work. This is not good fun. Got to get out of here, because it was messy. It was not fun. Yeah,
it's a painful. Yeah, it's a painful conversation. Listen, I've been through this whole thing, right? Having been a delinquent, and I stopped drinking in 2013, and I've really given this one some thought. And I've spoken to a lot of people that I consider wise about it, and I have my own thoughts. Is that, everybody's trying to ameliorate something in that moment. Is what we're like, just make it go away, if only for a second. And nobody ever sits still to go, what can I do in my real life just so that stops? But no, I need to pour down tequilas, and we justify it, and we have to mask it with Friday night, and we live for Fridays. And I watch it around me, and again, those are the types of people. Like for me, Gareth, I think I've told you before, but if a lady drinks, it's a non-starter for me, because I know there's a lot of pain that you're not willing to deal with. As much as you can mask it, I just like to have a good time. It's a non-starter for me. You got to deal with your stuff. And it's very painful to tell people this. And I've had people come to me and ask me, how did you stop? Why did you stop? You know what I mean? And I'm like, if you have to ask me, you're not serious. Because if you're not in the deepest pain when you come and ask me, I can tell you haven't thought about the reason you're drinking. And it's a painful thing to have to say to people, but we're in so much pain. People are in so much pain and lonely.
I do think that's spot on. I think that's exactly right. And maybe that's at the root cause. Because you know that we treat the symptoms in this country. We never treat the actual underlying disease. And because we've got so much trauma and pain in this country, and there's so many people who've just had the most horrendous lives, and they have very little to look forward to, they kind of prefer that parallel state of being half awake and being half conscious, because it just doesn't hurt so much. And this is very hardcore, but I think that that's the case for many people. I don't know, like I can say honestly, for me, that's not what I have been very drunk in my life, but I've never been like blackout drunk. And it does worry me that sometimes I overdo it in the binge drinking, but it'll only be weekends. During the week, you won't catch me with anything to drink. And even sometimes over the weekend, I won't be. Like I was just telling you about Friday night. I didn't necessarily hit it very hard on Friday night at all. In fact, I woke up on Saturday feeling quite fresh. But I think there are people who use it as a coping mechanism. And then there are other people who just, like in my case, I don't know what else to do when you are out with friends. Like to do, as in to do with your hands. Like I don't. It sounds ridiculous. What do I actually do? Do you know what I mean? Like I became a DJ, I think, because partly it gave me something to do at a party. It's like I needed a job. Yeah, if I didn't have a job there, then I would have to dance, and I was shit at dancing, or I would have to talk to someone, which is great, but sometimes you don't. You can't hear people. It's so loud in these places. So I would have to do something with my hands. So I would be drinking or pouring someone else a drink or buying someone else a drink, or, the drink is just it's almost like a thing you do while you're hoping things will improve. Does that make sense?
No, definitely. It's almost like being out or being around people comes with drinking, because what else are you guys doing? Are you guys getting there to have a business meeting? No. If not, then what? Let's just drink, and it becomes like a bit of a norm. I'm guilty of it myself. I won't lie. This weekend I had to stop and say, no, man, I can't be doing this. Let me try something different. So I decided, let me not drink out. Now we just drank in the house, which made it a lot easier. But still, man, I'm getting sloshed. And I wake up and I've got like loser syndrome and I feel shitty and I'm like, oh, I've got work to do. And I don't want to feel like that anymore.
Robin says alcohol costs way too much. Stop drinking. You can save a ton of money. That's always a good point. But
and actually, that cost, the greatest cost isn't financial. The thing about alcohol is, as much as she may have meant financial, the greatest cost with alcohol is never financial. It's always your health. And for me, you know why it's such a turnoff for me? Because if you're willing to drink alcohol, I know what you think of yourself. I don't care how good you think the alcohol is, because I've always told you this, Gareth.
Wow.
What you put in your mouth lets me know what you think of you. I see you eating McDonald's. Oh, that's what you think of yourself. Interesting. Very, very interesting. And I'm dead serious. Go ahead.
Carl says, you guys bashing our culture of drinking is actually unpatriotic. Stop. It is Puzza Tuesday, for fuck's sake.
Tell them, Carl.
That's great. Vince says,
Gareth, I have a solution for you.
I stopped drinking, but Mbulelo made me go back. No.
You won't be the first or the last, Vince. That's good.
You were going to carry on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I've got a solution for you and Lebang, so you don't have to have drinks in your hands. You can build a life where you aren't around situations where you have to drink. Get a hobby, do some stuff, stand up paddle,
do that,
go in a row.
But I do that.
Yeah.
I do that.
No. I mean,
I have more hobbies than you.
No, I'm saying if you want to, let's say you did 100K marathon running in mountains, right? Yeah, well, I'm just telling you, you can't be Friday night at the bar. So what I'm saying is, if you really want to control
something stiff.
Sorry, I'll give you a solution that works for you. Sorry, I'll come back with a new one. But you can very easily build a life where you're not in those situations. Very easily. And if you want to, again, I'm not saying you have to. If you really want to, you can very easily build a life where you're not at bars ever.
Well, you can meet people for lunch or for breakfast rather than for dinner or for drinks. I mean, those are little things you can do too. Michael says 5 minutes after the first drink, people start speaking shit that only drunk people would find interesting. Drunk people are a bore to the sober. Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah.
Anyway, lots and lots of attacks on the alcoholics this morning. So we'll try and hold back on that. All right, let's go to some headlines quickly, see what's happening. Zuma's former architect is representing himself at the Special Investigations Unit trial in order to recover some funds. That's right. The Special Investigating Unit is trying to recover 155 million rand from the former president's architect, Minenhle Makhanya, which started on Monday. Makhanya is at the center of Zuma's Nkandla residence upgrades, which were overseen by the Department of Public Works at a cost of 246 million rand to the taxpayer. The SIU Special Tribunal sitting in the Pietermaritzburg High Court will hear the week-long trial on the matter between Makhanya and the Department of Public Works. I love the way they're trying to blame the architect for this. The architect wasn't the one spending public funds. It was you, Department of Public Works. And
but Jacob didn't know.
Yeah, but okay, but
remember, he said, I didn't know. I didn't know. I don't know what was happening there.
So if I was an architect, yeah, I do remember. Everybody remembers. If I were an architect and you came to me and said, listen, you've got to design this house for the president and you've got unlimited budget because the government's going to pay for this one. You know, the taxpayer's footing the bill. You better believe as an architect, I'm going to say, we're using these materials. We're going to do this plan. I'm going to change it 20 times. Every time I redraft it, it's going to cost you an extra $1 million. We're going to put a bunker underneath for all the Zuma money. You're going to build a fire pool. We're going to do all kinds of cool stuff. And I'll keep on adding extras to that bill because that's what you are supposed to do if you're good at business and you realize that the other person is not good at business. And the other person in this case was Department of Public Works, right? Do you remember?
Yeah, sure. I'm with you halfway. But what I will say, the other part of business is to also do your research in who you're doing business with. Because if you're really in business, and Gareth, you're in business, is you know that you take full responsibility for the sort of entrepreneurship you take part in. So I do blame him because I believe in responsibility. Is if he wants all of the profit, he must take all of the downside of who you dealt with. He chose to deal with Zuma, so he must face the consequences.
Fair enough.
So I'm with you halfway.
The architect is a small part of this problem.
Yes.
Anyway, they're trying to recover some money.
Yes.
And apparently he is said to have pocketed 16 million rand from the controversial Nkandla project. So he got 16 million out of 264 million. That doesn't seem like price gouging to me. And I want to do a quick calculation. Hang on a second. I'm going to grab my calculator. I'm going to show you my work, okay?
What is that, 15%?
Divided by 264. Oh, come on. This is like 6%. Okay, so if you're going to make 6% out of a deal, I don't think that that's unreasonable. I don't think that's unreasonable. No, what? They're going after him. Now, listen. I mean, he definitely there's an abuse here because the abuse again is taxpayer money. But 264 million and his piddly 16 million, which frankly I think would be a good commission for building the president a house. Anyway, photographs, visuals, exit points. So it was felt that in security considerations, the trial had to be held in camera. Advocate Vinay Gaju, who's representing the SIU, said that the tribunal will bring 3 witnesses, the chief investigator, the architect, and the quantity surveyor. He told the special tribunal that the matter had been in the court since 2014 and needed to be brought to finality in the interests of justice. Yeah. Meanwhile, I don't know if you've seen, but the latest pictures of Nkandla show a place that is falling apart. No one's maintaining anything there at the moment. It's just falling to pieces. So not surprisingly, if you give a man like Jacob Zuma a nice house, it won't take, and I don't know whether you think it's nice or not, but it won't take him long for cracks to develop in every wall, for the fences to come down, for people to not clean the windows. You know what it's like. Some people just don't know how to look after things or maintain things, and he's one of those people, clearly. So let's see what happens. Structural engineers' fees are way higher, says DK. They always go after the low-hanging fruit, easy pickings. I think those are all good points. So lots of people jumping in here. And lots of people still talking about the alcohol stuff. But there we are. That's what's happening with Nkandla at the moment. And then Ramaphosa has lamented the lack of ethics in public service. This guy's always surprised by things. He's totally out of touch. Okay? He's like, how can you guys be so unethical? I mean, this is the man who sat in cabinet while all of this stuff was going down. He's like, what's this? We are double yes. You know, what's his story? This guy. So anyway, Cyril admits there's a lack of ethics in the public service. He says there's a still long way to go towards instilling this culture among civil servants. He focused on the public sector in his weekly newsletter as Public Service Month draws to a close. Isn't that nice that we finally realize it's Public Service Month in the last 3 or 4 days of the month?
Oh,
when?
September?
Yeah, because Women's Month, we made a huge fuss, beginning, end, and the middle. But of course, nothing changed for women. We expect nothing to change for Public Service Month, but at least they were smart enough to only tell us it was Public Service Month when there were 3 days to go. So we couldn't make too much of a fuss. Huh?
Smart.
Anyway, there's Cyril jumping in on the bandwagon. Gauteng police have grabbed over 1,300 suspects in a crime-fighting operation. Crom
where?
Apparently, Crom in Gauteng, man.
Jeez.
So 1,370 suspects were arrested over the Heritage Day long weekend, some of them for serious crimes such as murder, rape, being in possession of stolen and hijacked vehicles, possession of unlicensed firearms, pointing of firearms, house robbery, armed robbery, and driving under the influence of alcohol. I wonder what percentage of those 1,370 were just drunk driving. Probably quite a lot.
It was a bit of a tough weekend, guys. Like one of my friends, like her cousin was shot 9 times in his Ferrari leaving a party.
Jeez.
Right?
You're joking. What kind of friends do you have?
Like
wow.
Literally, it's getting hectic. Like I was like, "Are you okay? Are you guys okay?" That's what I'm saying. Like being out and drinking, it's weird these days. But anyway, let's park that. But anyway, may his soul rest in peace. He was just like shot leaving a party in his Ferrari 9 times. Right?
My God. Yeah, that's awful. That's really terrible. So I want to turn our attention to something that came up in the show with Dr. Hanan the other day when we were talking about the anxiety that some moms feel about, just huge social pressure and very little compassion or sympathy from people who are not moms. And even, frankly, from other moms who are super judgy sometimes. So I got a voice note. They're very judgy. I got a voice note from a friend of mine. We've been friends since high school, and she has Lebang. You think you've got 4 kids, and that's a headache. Well, Cathrine has 5.
Wait, does Lebang do you have 4 kids?
How long have you been doing the show together?
Wait,
you're like Cyril. You're like Cyril. Yes. 4 children.
How old is Lebang?
I pushed 3 of them out, and 1 is my stepson, but they're all mine. I've got 4 kids that are all my children. Mbulelo, do you know nothing about me?
That is insane. I didn't realize you had 4 kids. My God.
You are like Cyril. You don't pay attention and then you get shocked.
No, I am literally shocked right now.
You're kidding.
Literally. I'm the most shook of it. Whew.
Okay.
Wow.
So
blown away.
Lebang has 4, but hold your breath, Mbulelo, because my friend Cathrine has 5.
Yes.
That's right.
That's
so
true.
she's like the super mom, and she makes me laugh whenever she talks about being a mom because she's got such a she's just very self-deprecating and hilarious about it, but she's also extremely practical and sensible, and she's not really that bothered by what other people think. But I got this voice note from her the other day where she was like, you know what, I'm tired of people caricaturing mothers as always shouting at their kids. And she wants to address that this morning. So I said to her, let's do it. So hey, Cathrine, how are you?
Hi, good morning. Good, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you, Cathrine?
What have you done with all the kids What have you done with all the kids while you're talking to us?
I locked them in a cupboard. No, they're still sleeping. They're still sleeping. Don't stress.
I was about to say, yeah, lock them up.
I found out apparently it's illegal to do that, so I'm not doing that.
I want to just tell people what the context of this is, because you sent me this voice note saying, look, you think it's really unfair that people always picture in their heads, or they always caricature mothers as being like these fishwives who shout at their children the whole time, and they never treat their children as little adults and speak to them sensibly and quietly and calmly, and that they're always shouting and screaming. And you say there's a reason that mothers are always shouting and screaming at their kids, and it's unfair.
It is. It's totally unfair. And there's a few reasons for this. In the first place, children aren't little adults. They are unformed. They have underdeveloped prefrontal cortexes. They don't even hear the words that are coming out of your mouth most of the time. And sometimes all you have is volume. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and this was the way people shame, and this has to be, I can't imagine who is believing this stuff. It must be new moms with only one kid or something, where they're saying that like you're damaging their little psyches if you shout at them. I mean, I just got to say, like, I don't know how else you're going to actually communicate with these little people, because they don't even speak your language for the first 18 months or so of their lives. So literally all they have, and I'm not going to say it's like speaking to, say, your pet, but honestly, all they have is like tone and volume. And it was Mark Ruffalo, the guy who played the Hulk, who was saying, if you're not shouting at your kids, you're not spending enough time with them. Because trust me, you're going to be yelling at some points. And I hate this implication that that this somehow makes you a less lovely person or a less effective parent. If anything, I'm kind of, I don't understand people who don't yell at their kids, and I wonder what the hell they're doing behind closed doors to achieve this. You know what I'm saying? Like, are they manipulating their children? Are they bribing them? Because I don't know how they're doing it without volume. And this is, and you know, and the pandemic has made it worse. And I've seen a lot of articles in all over the main sort of publications, which comes down to the fact that parents are suffering. We are battling, and it comes down to the fact that we're working from home. And you know, you're very fortunate if you work from home. So people are like, oh, you're so lucky, you're working from home and you've got all your kids there. And I'm like, dude, this is like Lord of the Flies over here. Okay, we're working and we're trying to raise and feed 5 kids who have no idea how important this is, and who couldn't give a shit if you're in a meeting or not. And they're like, oh, that's so beautiful. You know, that's so, I don't understand people who are teaching their kids at home, like people who are homeschooling. I'm quite happy to outsource that, because I'm not an early education specialist. Thank you very much. You know, and they say it takes a village to raise a child. Where's the village? Why haven't they knocked on my door yet? I'm waiting. It is hard, man. It is hard. And like the fact that you have to outsource them being looked after most of the time. And then you've like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's a lot. And I know I'm getting a bit ranty, but it is.
No, this is exactly why I wanted you on. You don't have to make excuses. I want you to explain to people who don't get this why you are sick and tired of being judged for the occasional moment where you're like, stop it, just stop it, to your children.
So, Cathrine,
yes.
At about 3, you didn't think to yourself, yes, this man, this thing.
No. My press release is that I wanted a big family. But you know how you can have these vital bits of information in your life that somehow pass you by. One of these vital bits of information is the fact that certain antibiotics interfere with oral contraception. I found that out with number 4. And then number 5 was a wild weekend with a bottle of Nederburg Baron. And I don't regret the wine or the child. It is what it is now. So, I will explain, though, when it comes down to okay, in the first place, and you're never alone, okay? You are never alone. When you have small children, even teenagers, tweens, they are demanding. And I mean, the other day, my husband was away for a work thing. I was not left alone in the toilet once for like 3 days. They'd wander in. And you know what they wander in and come and tell you about? What they want for their birthday in 6 months. And the reason they do that, I realized, is because it's the only time they've got you sitting and you can't leave. So you'll be like on the loo or showering and they will wander in. And if you're wondering why I don't just lock them out, it's because then I run the risk of them locking themselves in if I leave the key there, which has happened before. Yeah. So what you end up with is you at the window and this like screaming 5-year-old who can't get the thing out. And then like, you've got to call the police. It's yeah. So there's the issue of the fact that you are never, ever alone. You don't get to start anything. You don't get to finish anything. If you want to watch your Nordic noir on Netflix, you've got to wait until flipping 10 o'clock at night when finally they've gone to sleep. And that takes forever. 3 things are going to happen when you're trying to get them to sleep. They're going to come out for 50 sips of water, or one of them is going to emerge with a single glove, suddenly being terribly worried about the location of the other glove, or they're going to come out and go, I need tinfoil. I have a project due for tomorrow. I'm going to fail if I don't do it. It is like, and I'm telling you, that is, and you can be guaranteed, and that'll be the night when you're on your last episode of Ragnarok, and you can't wait just to have that little glass of wine and sit and just watch this flipping thing. And that is every day.
Like we're sitting here laughing, but this is the absolute truth. It happens like this all the damn time. You're lucky to even get a moment to yourself. But there's also some good in it. And I like that we're sitting here laughing at it. But I think the fact that you're never alone, Catherine, and the fact that you always have them around to a certain extent, you can't just sit there at the end of the day and go, fuck, I love my kids. Like they make life that much more interesting. They really give it so much personality. They give your daily life just so many different layers. And that for me is just, it's fine that you've pissed on the floor. It's okay that you've stolen all the on the fridge. You've broken 30 trays of eggs. It's okay. In the heat of the moment, it's shitty. But at the end of the day, fuck, man, I can sit here and talk about these stories, right? And that makes it also so worth it. So
I think that's the thing. Like I obviously will never regret it. And I'm really proud of these kids. They're super amazing little people. And I can't wait to see how they turn out. That's also an interesting thing. You also sort of wonder, you don't really know if you're a good parent until you actually release one of them into the wild, which is also a bit tough. You sort of wonder, you can't really beta test it. So there's that problem. But the one thing I think that is the major issue is the fact that nobody is seeing those tender moments. Certainly my neighbors aren't seeing those tender moments. What they're hearing is me basically sounding like a sergeant major. And kids scream a lot. They scream, even boys scream. They scream a lot. So I always wonder kind of what the neighbors think. And I don't know if they're older people. I've noticed older, more mature people kind of don't mind. They like the sound of small children, and I guess I'm very lucky there. But really, it's the judginess that comes from a certain subset of people online. And you find them a lot on Facebook, because Facebook is the sort of mommy area. You're not going to find them so much on Twitter. And that's where, everybody likes your baby pictures, and then you feel like you have to reciprocate. So you like their baby pictures. And then the algorithm thinks that you want to see more mommy shit. And then it ends up giving you these articles about how, like, if you don't feed your child kale, you're basically killing them. And if you're feeding them wheat, you're basically killing them. And if you've ever given your kids sugar, you're basically killing them. And it never ends. The judginess never ends. And there's these 2 schools of thought. You got the one group of people who are like, children today are too soft. When I was growing up, I got beaten back, black and blue, and I went outside, and all I had to play with was a dead rat and a piece of dog shit, and I turned out fine. And you're sort of going, did you though?
Did you though?
Did you turn out fine?
Look at yourself.
Exactly. And then you've got the other group of people who are sort of like, they've got these pale anemic children, and they're feeding them, kale and rice cakes and things, and these poor kids can never go out. And when they do, when the kid finally gets out, all they can think to do is, eat sand, because they're lacking iron in their systems. And those will be the same parents that won't give their kids tetanus. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. The point is, you can't win. Everybody has their own view on how you're supposed to do it, and they're all judging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is beyond frustrating
Well-
because there's no rule, there's no pattern. Everybody's
But
different.
you see, this is kind of why we need a constitution for parents, and somehow there has to be a Council of Nicaea where they decide that all the parents put in their little 2 cents worth in a machine. There has to be an algorithm. It has to be a supercomputer that calculates what needs to go into the constitution of parents. And then you have some basic requirements. Like there's level 1 where basically if you do those things, you won't go to jail as a parent. There's level 2 where if you do those things, you'll end up with a kid that can make it in the world, more or less. And level 3 would be like, you've done the best possible job you can do, because there is no level 4. Like there's no perfection.
But you know what the thing is? One couldn't do that. I mean, okay, we obviously have the law where if you don't do the absolute baseline, you do actually go to jail, which is, a relief. And that's quite a good thing.
Wow.
But also different kids require different types of parenting. And also it depends very much on the social circumstances of the parent. So you have parents who may earn like a quarter of what I earn, but they're prioritizing things like they won't prioritize entertainment for their kids necessarily. They'll prioritize education, clothes, whatever. And those kids, I suppose, make their own entertainments. But the point is, depending on your family dynamic and your financial situation and all of the rest of it, you've got to try and make it work, sometimes under quite insane circumstances. And sometimes you don't even, you're being forced to live with a family member who's a bit of an asshole, and now you've got to try and protect your kids from this person. And you know what I mean? So I know I'm fortunate. For all of my whining, I'm flipping privileged. I have a great setup.
I'm glad you said that. I'm really glad you said that, because I wanted to just add something in there for the people that are next door and you're wondering how they're feeling. What I do feel, congratulations, first of all, on having a soccer team of your own. But what I do think is we should all decide where all of you live, because some of us don't need to hear your kids screaming. That is an important thing. Like family people, you should live over there.
Go on.
So we should have like certain kind of areas that we put the parents.
Yeah.
I have an interesting thought about this. Somebody was saying they should have shopping hours when you can take kids.
Yes.
And
yes.
And I thought about this and I was like, I think that's a little bit rich considering that you were a kid. Everybody's been a kid.
Right.
No, you should have it all the time.
Have people forgotten what it was like to be a kid? Have they forgotten how difficult it was? All you want when you're a kid is sweets. And it's so hard to acquire them. And your only source of income is your teeth. You've got to lose a tooth to get money. And then you've got to hope that your mom isn't one of those, one of those people who doesn't let you buy sweets with the money, where they go, oh, no, honey, we're going to save this for mathematics. Those poor kids. Don't you remember that? I remember.
All right. So, Ruth says you've got to have Cathrine on weekly, Gareth. You're dropping. Here we go. Kanda Kulu says Cathrine is amazing, dropping truth bombs like a B-52 Bravo. We need a parenting section, if nothing else, so that parents know that they're not alone. I'm sure Cathrine runs her family better than Cyril runs the country. I think she does.
It really just feels better knowing that you're not alone, like going through this. Like knowing that Cathrine is sitting having the same struggles as me. I'm just like, yes, mothers unite. It's okay that you're going through shit all the time. It really, and you have to listen to people like Mbulelo complain about the fact that you're mothering in this way when Mbulelo doesn't even have a single seat of his own. Bro.
No, I don't mind how you're mothering. Just go live somewhere else. Don't live next door to me in a complex. Sorry, I didn't tell you to have a family, and I'm happy for you, but I didn't say you must have kids. Like you don't need to live in a complex next to me.
I think you should lean into it. Where's the village, dude? You go knock on that door and you help.
Yeah.
No, I live in the next village. Cathrine, I live in the next village where we
Jean says parent apartheid is what Mbulelo wants. He wants apartheid. That's right. That's what you're asking for. And it's interesting because he actually lives in a complex where they have a rule that you're not allowed to have children, but someone's moved in with a kid anyway. And now they're trying to evict these people. I mean, that's kind of cruel. Parenting is hard enough without having to be evicted.
Is that even allowed?
Yeah, it's in the rules. It's in the rules.
But the question is, did the kid come unexpectedly later, or did they sneak the kid in?
No, they just moved in. 2 kids. And just like my Saturday now is your Saturday. Now your little girl's throwing a ball into my garden. Like, I'm happy for you that you have a family, but it's in the rules. What are you doing living here? Like,
did you just?
Having said that, I'm happy for you.
Fair enough. I do feel that if there are people who want to live their lives without joy and children, then I think that they should be allowed to have that. They should be allowed to have that. I think it's fair.
Yeah. Cathrine, why don't the people that don't want joy and children go live over there somewhere in the desert on the outskirts? Why must us with kids move? Y'all move.
And but the thing is, I do actually understand this, because it's bad enough, like when I'm just trying to have like a Sunday afternoon sleep, which is already optimistic. It doesn't actually happen. But I decide I'm going to lie down a bit. And I listen to these kids screaming and carrying on and performing and arguing and the non-go. And I sort of wonder what it must be like. I have to love them. I have to, that they're a part of my family. I do have those moments where I'm like, if I was not related to these kids, I'd be like phoning the police or something. And so I can totally understand that. And at the same time, sadly enough, the idea that you can discipline children under a certain age, there's a ceiling to what you can actually get a kid under 18 months or 2 years or 3 years to do. And I suppose that's the other issue is my favorite is when people are sort of blaming the parents when a kid is screaming their head off in a shop. And they're all sort of looking at you like, shut this kid up. And you're sort of thinking, there are 2 options here. I can tape their mouth shut, or I can open a bag of marshmallows and just shovel all of the contents into this kid's mouth. They are tired. They are irritated. They have no context. They have no impulse control, and they don't give a shit. And it is what it is. And as parents, we're doing our best, obviously, without psychologically damaging our children. So I don't believe in corporal punishment. But man, they're going to hear from me. Those kids are going to hear me 3 blocks down. And I suppose,
that's kind of why we wanted to bring you on. But it seems like, judging by the comments, everybody wants you back again. So we maybe should start a thing where Cathrine gives us really good and really bad parenting tips every now and then, just for those people who desperately want them and need them. And it seems that there's a huge market for this. Anyway, Cathrine, nice to have you on, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. You guys were awesome. Thank you so much.
Great to have you here. Thank you.
You're awesome.
There we go. That's good. She's hilarious.
She's excellent.
And love that.
Yeah. Anyway, so now she's got to go and look after the 5 kids, so we can't keep her too long. And it's just after 7, so we'll be back with This Is Us and a whole lot more in the next hour. Stick around. CliffCentral.com. Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on CliffCentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yo, I put it like wow. This that sound. These oaks don't work hard like me. I hope they know by now.
CliffCentral.com on Tuesday, the 28th of September. It's almost October, and I know that some people get irritated when I do this, but you've got to realize, like, yeah, end of the year is just around the corner, people. Speaking of the MKT show and Cliff Central Sport, the K is for Kayaletu, huh?
Indeed, Kayaletu, which is my middle name.
Oh, I was always wondering, like, what does it stand for?
What did you think it was?
Oh, dude, I didn't even. I was like MKT. I really didn't even try, to be honest. I just kind of was hoping that one day it would land in my lap, and here we are.
That's because you're raising a rugby team. You shouldn't be focusing on ridiculous things like that. I didn't know you had 4 kids. You've got no time for such little things. 4 kids, huh, Lebang?
How did you not know those?
We spoke about it like from day one, because it was one of the things that really impressed me. It seems like Lebang is one of those rare creatures who can hold down a serious job, a serious career, actually have a personality and a life, and manages to raise the 4 kids, which is, I mean, it's pretty substantial. So I always make a fuss of it, even though I don't know if she always wants me to tell people that. But I can't help it. When people meet you for the first time, I'm like, she has 4 kids before you can even get anything else.
He doesn't even say, hi, this is Lebang. He just goes, oh, this girl has 4 kids. You should check her out. No, I think it's really cool. Thank you, Gareth, because it makes me feel better, because, it's a lot. And most of the time, I don't even stop and say, geez, am I really doing all of this? I kind of just keep moving and I just keep going. And it's nice that,
It does strike me as it's like a compliment. I'm certainly not saying it to make fun of you or disparage you or anything, because it's definitely something I don't have the power to do. Anyway, apparently there are a few more of these groups that have been these WhatsApp groups where people have been posting nudes by mistake, but the WhatsApp group is like a neighborhood group or whatever. The one that I got yesterday was in America, and this woman she posted a picture of her vagina on this. I don't know if it's a neighborhood. Let me just see what the group's called. Oh, Brockworth Badgers under 11s. So it's their kids sports team.
Oh no!
And she posts, she posts a picture of her vagina, and then someone says, "Good job, there's no children on here. What the hell?" The next one goes, "Sorry." The one who posted it goes, "Sorry, please remove. That was a private photo loaded by mistake. I'm so sorry." And then someone replies, "Some girl I know posted a pic of her growler to her son's under 11 football group chat. The other parents are not happy at all."
The work that it takes for you to open your phone, go to WhatsApp, go to the photos, select the photo, send it. It's not a one-step thing. So how you mistakenly...
Tough. Oh. And it's never going to be the hot mom in the thing as well. I always, whenever I see your stories, it's never the hot mom, because every dad in there is hoping for that. Like every dad's cool with it. Let's be honest, every dad is thinking, if I wasn't with my terrible wife.
Someone messaged this poor Natalie at the end of this whole saga, which is just awful. Can you imagine? And said, "Hi, Natalie. You have quite possibly the worst fanny I've ever seen. I can imagine licking it would be like a 9-volt battery."
No.
And then she replies, she replies, "Police involved. Fuck off." Because what happened was, on WhatsApp, you can delete something, but then it gives you the choice, delete for everyone or delete just for me. So in a panic, she pushed delete just for me. So then you can't go back and delete it for everyone after that, right? So, so that's pretty horrible. But this is also, it reminds me of the whole Richard Spoor thing that we got into with Pumi last week, and how he put that big picture of, anyway, his nude where he had his penis, his undercarriage, his tackle front and center. And you just, we've got to realize also, this is where technology is godly and amazing and advanced and superhuman, but we're actually just these backward meat vehicles that have a prehistoric brain that still operates like it's on the savannah. And we're just not smart enough to use technology properly. There's nothing we can do, no matter how clever we think we are, right?
For the most part, we're using it all wrong. WhatsApp actually has a new feature that lets you only like control how many times a person views a picture. So like when you send somebody a file, there's like a little number one, and like a half circle there. That number one controls that they can only see it once, and then it just like disappears. So it's I think WhatsApp is maybe starting to feel bad for us, because how many times have these situations happened where people are just getting access to, our nudes and stuff? So if we just learn how to use our things better.
It usually is a mistake. Like people just post it to the wrong group, or they send it to the wrong person, or whatever. And it's very embarrassing. Obviously,
Gareth.
It's very embarrassing, but it is a mistake.
But water will always find its level. So in the beginning, it was nice messages. Hey, I hope you're doing well. But mankind, by his very nature, is lascivious. So it will always come back to that. I want to see you naked, and preferably replicate someone that looks like you and me. That's where it's always gone to. So most of the internet's porn. Most of every dude group you're in, we know what's going to go on there. And I've seen some ladies groups where that goes. Friends of mine. So, but our very nature is we're genetically driven to see nipples,
No,
that's
that's very true. Yeah. Speaking of porn, I had like friends over this weekend, and we were all sitting in front of the TV, just huddled up, like movie marathon vibes. We had just watched like Rock and Roller. We're just in that vibe, like, oh, we're having so much fun. And so now we're on the PlayStation, busy searching for the next movie, and one of the web pages just quickly swung to the right, and there was like a fat whole porn everything, and we kind of all just like turned and looked at the same person, because we kind of all knew, guys, it was so bad. We're all like, So my cousin just like decided to laugh, like, ha ha ha, But in my mind, I'm like, hey, my kids have access to TV. Like, what if?
Oh, was it at your house?
Yes, I had cousins over, I had family over. It was a long weekend. We're all chilling, doing movie marathons whilst drinking. And then as we're scrolling, like this porn, dude, it was.
So wait, they were scrolling. So they're obviously sleeping at your house, is what you're saying, your cousins or whoever it is. And so this one particular person, probably a dude, just thought at 11 at night, I'm hammered.
Yes.
Wow.
So now it's the morning.
What a
after.
liver.
A real liver. Because now I'm sitting there and my mind is just like, how are we? But luckily we just sort of laughed it off. But like, hey, it was a bit awkward.
You have to laugh it off, because it was definitely more embarrassing for him than it was for any of you, right?
Of course.
So
so bad.
Well, Tracy says there's this thing going on at the moment where a woman will send a hot photo of herself to her partner while they're at a family dinner, or when he's talking to his mother, and the reactions are priceless. Sure.
My ex-girlfriend used to love doing that. Like at when we're sitting with, that's a thing.
I need to try that.
That's some dangerous shit. That's very dangerous. And I think you just got to. Oh man, like there is a time and place, right? I mean, that's what we all try to enforce in our lives, is a time and place for all these things. And sometimes the timing is very badly off, and the place is even worse. I've actually written a thing which we should be able to put up today about that whole Richard Spoor thing, and just kind of the ways that people deal with these things when they happen. And I think it's quite funny. So that'll come up a little later on cliffcentral.com. And Dogoza says, I was at the beach yesterday, minding my own business. Suddenly these girls got naked briefly to change into bikinis. Very weird. The Joburgers are in town. And Dogoza, take it.
Where must I change? I'm on the beach. Must I walk up to the, help me. Like, can I just not change right there?
No, let me translate to what happened there. Is they weren't hot enough for him not to complain.
Thank you, Mbulelo, for that's it.
Because I wouldn't complain if they're hot. So let's just be honest. Let's cut to it. Let's get to the bottom of it.
We
If they
would
were
not be
hot,
talking about this. If these girls were piping hot, we would not be having this conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be an issue. No,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
bottom line,
I mean,
if you want to change in public,
cruel.
be hot.
Be hot.
Cool, but so Lexi sent me an email to Sam responding to your podcast asking for South Africans abroad to give their take on what life is like on the other side. I've been living in London for 14 years, and for 10 of those, I wake up every day wishing I was back home. Financially, it's easier for me to be here. It's easier to save and go abroad. You have a greater disposable income, which you spend on traveling to escape the shit city and the weather. Job opportunities here are greater. The longest time I've spent looking for a job is 2 months. It's also quicker and far less red tape to be promoted here than it is in South Africa. In terms of crime, yes, I don't get that panic in the middle of the night when I hear something, but often when I walk down the street, I'm scared of the little yobs, 10 to 18-year-olds, who walk together in the street and harass you and just cause trouble. Not because they're hungry or poor or want to steal something, it's just because they're overindulged little shits that have no rules or morals and get away with behaving like the trash that birthed them. It's everywhere. They are so angry all the time. I live a pretty affluent area in London, but there are still break-ins and car theft. You can escape it, but who wants to live in a village where there are 2 pubs, a Pizza Express, and a pond with just ducks to look at, and it's grey 70% of the time? There are even some areas that when the sun comes out, it's still grey. God, that sounds horrible. As a young professional, you simply cannot get into the housing market. The government has implemented a help to buy scheme where you pay a 5% deposit to only own 50%. So in other words, you pay £20,000 to only own 50% of the property you have, and you still have to pay the rent to the council on top of a mortgage for a 1-bedroom, 5th floor box in a wall with no balcony. No thanks. I think I'll keep my savings. In terms of service delivery, I applied for my driver's renewal in May, and I'm still waiting. This is due to DVLA, Department of, obviously, Vehicle Licensing or whatever, and COVID backlogs. Anyway, she writes, I think Lexi gives us a view of London, which most people who've moved to London don't want us to have, that it's actually equal amounts of good and shit, and that she's found a way of dealing with it. But she says 10 out of the 14 years that she's been there, she wished she was back in South Africa. So just some honesty from her, which I think is always interesting to look at. Red Robin says in the comments, I think my neighbor is cyber stalking me. I saw her entering my name into Google through my telescope. All right, very good. Yeah,
that's funny, but it's real. I moved into my complex like a year and a half ago, and like day 2, there was a drone outside my window. I remember like feeling like, what's happening here? Like, why is there a drone right at my window? I kid you not. And then obviously I was still new. I couldn't like really go on an investigation. But a couple of months later, I realized there's a guy in the complex who's like the drone guy because he walks around. Yeah. And I just kind of felt like, can I confront him? Should I just let it go?
You should have.
I should have.
That's not on. You can't fly a drone up next to someone's window and look into their apartment. That's completely illegal.
No, it's illegal. You can't even fly it over people's properties. It's illegal to fly over someone's garden. Like, check out what they're doing. Yeah,
without that.
Guy's, he's a creep.
I live in an area where we're on the approach to an airport, so you can't fly drones here anyway. Your drone won't work because all of them are programmed now that they actually won't work in certain air traffic control restricted areas, right? So a friend of mine brought his drone here the one time, and he was trying to take the thing off and actually go up and like take a picture of the house from above. Can't do it. You can't do it where I live. Terrific. Good. So I'm spared that at least. But you imagine being one of those people who thinks it's okay to fly right up to someone's window.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Jesus, was that outside your house, Lebang?
Yeah, was that a drone? What's
I told you,
where you live on the highway?
Let me close my window.
Unbelievable. So loud. How does she get her 5 kids to sleep? How does the whole soccer team fall asleep?
I told you guys
living underneath a bridge.
there's always races happening here. So you always see like these like Subarus and like after midnight it's like no. So I guess they're all just going to work.
That happens near me too. And I hear it late at night after curfew. And I'm like, surely, because there's a police station nearby too. Surely the police are hearing this as well. But they're not doing anything.
So
is it like
you
they're
remember I
filming
told
Fast and Furious every single night? What's happening?
They have made like 47 of those films, so it's possible.
Yeah.
But you know, I told you on my road there was a young rapscallion who'd moved in there and was starting to display those tendencies.
Oh, what?
A guy with tendencies. He is a rapscallion, and I won't hear any different. Oh, you know, living. Some people are to be admired, and let me just say this. Let's just call it what it is, right? In the area I live in, there happens to be a lot of affluent Jewish people who live on my road. And thank God for these menschers, because they don't play around. They're not like black people where we're going to go have a meeting about it. There's already a speed bump, honestly, that a small child couldn't get over on the road. The story I told you, I think, was like 2 months ago. There's a speed bump already. That guy's shitty little BMW or whatever he's driving around, if he tries it on our road, destroyed. And it's just such a pleasure to all the menschers around me. Mazel tov to everyone around me. Thank you. Thank you, Jewish people, for being who you are. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful.
They put up signs in my my state that say "Beware, children." So it makes me wonder: did the people who put up the signs, are they warning you that the children are dangerous, like when they put up "Beware," you know, wild animals, or because they want us to be aware of the fact that there are children around?
Most likely
both are valid.
Yeah, both are very valid.
Yeah.
No, but there's like some kids in some situations that you can manage, particularly like in the complex vibe. When I was still house hunting, and I came here looking for a place, there was this one kid who I'd swear was like the security guard, just hovering by the gate, checking who's coming in and out, just basically not having like a real kid life, because all he did was want to be a part of the adult things, to a point where like it got a bit annoying. He just walked in and out of people's garages. He would just sort of like knock at everybody's door. You know, that delinquent child in the complex who just like ring the bell and run off and take your mail and put it in the other boxes. And that was, when they say beware of children, they speak about those kinds of children.
That's what they mean.
Yes,
what an irritating kid. Did anyone eventually get hold of him and sort him out?
They eventually had to move out, because at some point they had broken someone's car. They had like thrown rocks at cars and nothing was being done about it. At another point, they were pushing other kids in the pool and nothing was being done about it. I think they made an executive decision to just leave because...
This kid was a proper delinquent. This is the kind of child that would have caused absolute chaos for people.
No, he definitely did 100%. But when you look in the household that he was living in, everything completely made sense. A child will never act out if, you know, it's just because or it's just vibes. There's always, a reason
going on.
It's facts.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry you had to put up with that. There's nothing worse than someone else's delinquent kid ruining the neighborhood. And there are levels. There are levels of delinquent. This one sounds like he was potentially a very, very bad. He's going to be a terrible adult. We can pretty much guarantee that, right?
Douchebag adult in the making.
100%. Now it is 7:30 or thereabouts, and it is time for us to check in on our new feature, which is called "This Is Us." So every Tuesday at 7:30, we are joined by Yatish Nasi, who you've met before, along with Lebang Khosana, to unpack what we can all do to spread positivity, kindness, and good vibes in South Africa. It's also about what it means to be South African. And we've got quite a lot to get into today. And we'll start off with a little recap of the Heritage Day weekend, because we were doing some things for the Heritage Day weekend, which Lebang will tell us about in a moment or two. And we're going to be joined by a special guest in a minute called Amy. She's going to be on with us in a sec. Hey, Yatish, nice to have you back. How are you?
Good, and you? How's it, guys?
Very, very good. All right, so Lebang and Yatish, give us a quick recap on Heritage Day, and that was a useful day to launch everything on. How did it go?
I thought everything went really well. So basically, the whole idea was for us to think about the kind of tomorrow that you're leaving. Think about the kind of South Africa that ultimately the future is going to inherit. And that was the whole purpose. The purpose was do one good act of kindness, do one good act of positivity, just something that's going to make the person next to you, around you, feel better, and just give a little bit of hope. Take some hope out of your bag and just spread it all over the place. So that's what we did, and that's what we tried to do. And I particularly like Yatish's view on it. He was more like, how do we get people to give what they've got from a resource perspective? So not money per se, not time even. Like it could be your profession, or it could be something you're good at. So there's this lovely lady who was a poet, and she was like, look, I'm willing to give away a poem. That's my one act of kindness, and hashtag this is us. So how cool is that, Gareth? Like the angle isn't just the typical go out there and,
So I thought about this because you guys gave me a job and you said we've all got to do this one thing. And
Yes.
I don't particularly like social media, but I thought it was an interesting thing to think about. I thought about how South Africa was in those mid to late 90s when we were building things, when we were trying to create a cohesive country. We were trying to make something out of a very troubled and difficult past. And I thought about all the things that we did to pull together. I even thought about, South African music and how that started to take off in the late 90s, and how we all became really passionate about being South African. We tried to figure out what it means to be South African. And instead of kind of go at each other, which was definitely I think there was a symptom of the early 2000s, or even the late 2000s, as it may be, that we just stopped building and we started breaking down. And it was partly the politicians' fault, but I don't want to blame them entirely because we also have a role to play. And I think it's time we start building again. Part of the reason I love this, This Is Us, is because it gives us a chance to build something, to create something, to do something really powerful. And, if you're creating things, that's your spark of the divine. And that brings us to our guest. So, Yatish, tell us about our guest for this morning.
Cool. So, I mean, Amy, who you'll meet if any of you have seen any of the media we've put out, either the sort of radio spots or the TV spots. Amy is one of the voices. She's actually the opening voice of that little montage we put together. And I think more importantly, and I'll also circle back to how sort of Heritage Day went. I mean, I think it was a good start. It was also indicative in many ways of just how far I think we have to go. I think changing behavior and building behavior is so much harder than just getting likes. I think often in campaigns we look for a very sort of superficial engagement, likes and shares and retweets and all these things, and we think we've made an impact. So I think, with this, we're trying to be a little bit more sincere and going, have we actually moved the needle? Have people behaved in the way that's consistent with This Is Us? And I think it does show that there's a long way to go. Having said that, the stuff that has come out is incredibly, incredibly encouraging. Even brands like sort of Vodacom picked it up organically. And the way they've integrated it has been great to see, because it's been through no counsel of ours. They just sort of integrated it. But Amy's voice, and why Amy's voice is critical, and many people like Amy, is whether it's likes or shares, or the reality is all three of us on the call, maybe with the exception of Lebang, Gareth, I don't know how old you are, but none of us are really going to see this thing bear fruit in a few years. But it's people like Amy who ultimately are going to bear the brunt of whether we behave properly or not. And so to get the youth is important, right?
And Heritage Day is all about the inheritance we leave. So, Amy, it's a pleasure to bring you onto the show. How are you?
It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of drowning in university work right now. So I'm doing fantastic this morning.
So, Amy, I'm just going to give you a very brief introduction here and say that you are someone who's extremely passionate about our country. You're vocal about your opinion and what the adults are doing and what they haven't done, and what you're going to inherit as a result of their good and their bad. And you're in Cape Town. You're originally from PE. You're 18 years old, and you're studying You're studying advertising, business. What are you doing?
Yes. visual communications, which has to do with marketing and graphic design and an amalgamation of all of those things.
So let's talk about the future of South Africa and what you're feeling as someone who is going to inherit this country ultimately. What are the adults doing right and what are they doing wrong? And you can be very straightforward with us. We're not going to get hurt, I promise.
Okay, amazing. Now, I think I'm going to start with the negatives. I definitely feel like there is a battle between people wanting to hold on to the old and people wanting to bring in the new. And I definitely feel like we haven't fully healed from 1994. I feel like we're still holding on to that and we're still holding on to the wounds that come with that. So I definitely think that it's becoming generational and we need to stop that. I definitely feel like parents that are more resistant to change are actually influencing their kids. And in the modern landscape where diversity is at the forefront, it's actually extremely damaging to their children as it can lead to ostracization in certain cases. I definitely feel that the adults of today are more open to being educated. I've actually seen a lot of my friends' parents being very open to being educated about new ways of thinking as well as new cultures. I definitely feel that we are influencing them to think a certain way. But at the same time, we are being shut down because, of course, parents are always right sometimes. You know, they always instill that sometimes. And I do see that it's a good thing. But age, unfortunately, is not a defining factor of your wisdom. And I feel like some people forget that because they just think that you've lived longer. So apparently you know more. I don't know. I just feel like some people aren't very profound, even though they have exceeded me in age. But I think that's just my personal opinion, to be honest.
No, I think you're right. I think that's absolutely true because I know loads of people who are very old, but they're still quite ignorant. So don't feel bad about it. All right. What are we doing right? And what do you love about being South African? What for you is some of the stuff that makes you proud, that makes you excited, that puts a smile on your face when you wake up in the mornings here?
I would definitely say the diversity in this country. It's unmatched. You can't find it anywhere else in the world. The plethora of languages that people speak, it's admirable to see that. It's admirable to see people, uniting. I mean, one instance of that is definitely the rugby. Everybody can unite over the rugby. It's like everybody just forgets how they feel and what side they're on, and they just come together. And I feel like we just need more moments of that. If we could just, encapsulate that into a legislation of sorts, I think it would be amazing. I think that.
Do we really want them making it a law? It's
a
bit scary.
More. Wait, let me just rephrase myself here. When I say into legislation, I mean more unification within the legislation we have now. I feel like there's not a lot of diversity, and I feel like by aiding that, people can learn more about their own cultures. And also about other people's cultures. I really think that our country is amazing with the amount of languages that we learn. I like that we're actually introduced to African language in school. I remember learning Xhosa in school, and I thought that was extremely helpful when it came to actually communicating with some of my peers. So I definitely think that the adults of the country did well by, promoting a sense of diversity in a very palatable way. For us kids.
I'm going to, I think most of us would agree with you on all of that stuff, but I'm going to challenge you just a little bit because there is, diversity just for diversity's sake doesn't necessarily mean a good thing either. You could have 200 people who all come from different places with different languages and different cultural backgrounds and all the rest, and you can have just a completely messed up situation. What I think makes us special in this country is when we decide to put our heads together and work towards something optimistic, positive, and constructive, then we can draw on everyone's experience in the most profound ways in order to achieve things. But if it's just diversity for the sake of looking like a rainbow cake, I don't think that necessarily achieves anything. And people are also tired of being sold this propaganda about how, the politicians have done something wonderful when we know that they haven't. So I'm just throwing that in as a proviso because I know people in the comments will be saying, "Oh no, this sounds like the same old." But I get what Amy's saying.
Yeah, and Gareth, also I think that my take out as well out of what Amy's saying is if you just look at take rugby as an example, right? I think what it demonstrates is how hungry South Africans are for little wins. You know, we're desperately looking to celebrate anything that that demonstrates we are capable of being a winning nation, right? And I think we're so starved of it in other aspects. We're so starved of it in politics and legislation and service delivery and all of these other things that, you know, the poor rugby team are left carrying the burden of, you know, if we're going to win something, it's those boys, you know, because we're not winning, we're arguably not seeing a lot of victories come through, which in many ways, I guess, is the foundational thinking for This Is Us, which is to say there actually are victories. I mean, you look at some of the guests, the one guest you had the other day, like, I mean, you just never hear about that stuff. And it's you know, the more we hear, the more I think it'll reframe the narrative of just how much goes on every day that is worth celebrating. And that builds the right momentum, you know, outside of the sort of typical rainbow cake jazz that we think we need to celebrate.
Well, what are the things that you think are holding us back, Lebang and Yatish? Because I think Amy's very well, she's articulated extremely well what the issues are from her point of view. What do you think are the things that hold us back? Because it's all good and well to have those feel-good moments, those euphoric highs when, you know, our sports teams do well, or when we see pictures of kind of, you know, Madiba walking out of prison and stuff. But they do tend to wear off very quickly. It's like a drug high. And then you come out of that and you're like, well, what do we got on a day-to-day basis to make us feel better? Because we can't have some sports team winning every day just to keep our high up.
Yeah, no, definitely. From a more personal perspective, I would definitely say healing, which is quite closely related to what we spoke about earlier with Mbulelo. It's what are some of the issues that we're dealing with as a country? Number one, if we don't heal, we won't be able to get to the next place. And I see it a lot with my own two eyes. I see these brilliant minds that are just going to waste, that are rotting, just based on number one, you know, sort of just being stuck in this old way of thinking, and number two, not really seeing a bigger life for themselves and a bigger world for themselves. And it's sad, just leaving the township is almost like an impossible thing for so many people. Just to see Sandton is like, whoa, this place exists. And so for me, it's in those things. It's let's get the mindsets just like, you know, fine-tuned. Let's get the healing done. Let's get some sort of like national psychiatric you know, aspect going down. Like we all need help, number one, and then let's live in the solutions.
Like a little bit of group
take it from there. Let's just get like group therapy. You know how we have Cyril doing the family meetings every other Friday on TV? Let's have a group therapy as a country and sit and unpack our problems so that, you know, we can start living in the solutions and seeing what we can ultimately do. If we can get the mindset of more South Africans to just switch on and switch off of those little things from the past, then you'll be surprised at what we can see. I had a conversation just this weekend with friends about something small like a tree, a little green tree. Most townships don't have any trees at all in the streets. And that was by law. By law, no green trees are allowed to be on the streets. And imagine, we may downplay it, but when you wake up in the morning and you open your window and you see a green tree and you can breathe this air and it's like, it probably makes some kind of little difference. Now,
of course it does.
Imagine if your whole life, if you can't do that. So for me, it's in those little things. Let's start planting trees in the hood, man. Let's start getting people out of these environments where they are almost suppressed into this way of thinking, because in as much as it's your own personal responsibility, your environment has an immediate effect on how you think and how you live. So for me, that's where I would start if I could.
I want to take it back to our special guest for this morning, Amy, and just ask you, Amy, like among your friends and the people that you talk to every day, whether it's on campus or at home or when you go out on the weekend or whatever it might be, what are the things that make you guys feel good, and what do you feel is the contribution that you can make? Because I know that we keep on being told, you know, that doing good is part of what young people in the world feel about themselves. They want to do good. What kind of good is that? And I know that it's not something hollow and meaningless and shallow. I know that it's something that really makes a huge difference in your and other people's lives. But what kinds of things do you guys talk about when it comes to these slightly more deep and meaningful contributions?
I definitely feel like when it comes to like doing good, I think it can be split up into like different facets. Like, you know, doing good in like treating your peers well and making sure that they're respected, respecting people's pronouns, respecting people's sexualities. It's not even just a culture thing anymore. It's something that reaches far beyond that. I'd also say that environmental affairs are actually something that people are very concerned about as well. We're very much into nurturing the planet as well as nurturing ourselves. So I would definitely say that that is what we think of when we want to feel good and do good.
I like that. Yatish, are there things that you think that we should all be doing at this stage, that we could all make a difference? I mean, you know, Lebang gives us a very simple, straightforward thing like the trees, for example, and we do have the most beautiful country when it comes to natural resources and the reason so many people from all over the world want to come and visit us here. But I don't know if we're the best guardians of that. I hope Amy's right and that the next generation is better than ours, because when I drive around, I see quite a lot of mess, and I don't think that that's Amy's people. I think it's our people, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, let's circle back to the rugby example, right? Because it's tangible.
Okay.
I think what people always need, it's just human nature, is we need like a shared agenda or a shared goal, which sometimes comes as well with a shared enemy, right? It's what's the thing we're fighting as a collective. It's often the best way to unite people across differences, right? Is a shared enemy. Now, you know, pre-94, the enemy was very easy to define,
Right.
and that, you know, that was obvious, and so you could rally across nationalities, languages, all sorts of things. Everybody knew that's what we're fighting, and I feel like some of the great countries in the world are so good at defining those agendas. So, you know, China are planning 50 to 100 years in advance. There's a very clear agenda. Whether you like what they do or not is immaterial. The point is, as a collective, they understand what they're shooting towards. So, you know, for me, the thing that's potentially really, really important, and that's why the youth was such a powerful voice for us, because it gave us a center of gravity. As This Is Us. We said the thing we should be fighting for is the legacy we leave behind for people like Amy, whether that's across environmental issues, whether that's across our sort of desirability as a tourist destination, whether that's you know, the sort of economic stability, service delivery, whatever that is. You know, the thing we leave behind is so critical. And if we can all start to think about, in fact, you know, again, I'll keep going with the rugby. If you look at the All Blacks code of conduct, right, one of the big things they talk about, which I love, is the idea that the jersey you wear is not your jersey, right? You're looking after it for the next number 15 or the next number 9 that comes after you. And they talk so clearly about that idea of plant the seed of the tree you won't see grow. So even if that's the agenda, even if that's the thing, which is to say, how do we progress from here to here in the next 10 years, and it's a shared national agenda, you know, I think things like that galvanize a country more than the sort of sporadic tactical things of just doing random good. I think we've got to at least coalesce it to something.
I think that's beautiful. Well, Amy, listen, it's a great pleasure to speak to you this morning, and thank you for joining us. And I hope that you continue to do amazing things, and we hear more from you and from other people in your generation who are making a difference. We'll talk again soon.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was amazing to be here, and thank you so much for giving the youth a platform in order to speak. Thank you so much.
That's pretty much all. It's all we're good for, if you ask me.
Right.
So I think there's some interesting points being made by people, and many of us look to someone else to do some of the hard and heavy lifting, right? And we look to politicians, and we've got elections coming up in this country now. And obviously politics just fragments us rather than puts us together, because politics, by nature of how it works, the politicians themselves do better when they can turn us on each other than when they can make us work together. And there was a brief shining moment for a couple of years in South Africa where we did put most of that stuff aside, where people were like, you know what, we'll forgive a little bit of this and a little bit of that on either side. and we'll just move forward. I think that that's kind of what you were hinting at there too, Yatish, is that we need now to have some kind of goal that we're all working towards. And it might not be the biggest things. It might just be little things. I'm thinking of Lebang's thing about the tree. I'm thinking about how you can mentor someone in your own business or in your own job. I'm thinking about how you can smile at somebody in the traffic rather than grimace at them, which unfortunately happens more than we'd like. And maybe even just clean up around you. You know, there's such a lot of work that needs doing when it comes to looking around South Africa, and someone's got to start doing it. And you don't have to start with the biggest thing. If you start with the stuff you can control, then you can make it bigger and increase the circle. And as you do that, you bring more people in to help you do it, right?
100%, 100%. And let's be honest, it's easier to kind of sit back and not do anything. It's easier to just sit and be like, well, somebody's got to fix it. It's not going to be me. And maybe you aren't going to understand why the concept is so important. But when you're able to look ahead and when you're able to say, you know what, in this little world that I live in, what is it that I can do? No matter how it sounds, just start, just do. And you will see that somebody is going to benefit from that. It doesn't need to be a big show. It really, really doesn't. But at least start to just sit back and focus on the negative and just look at all the bad stuff. And that's easy. And like the three of us here are not here for that. The three of us here are not here to...
South Africans love to complain, don't they? I mean, that's a thing that we definitely have. I mean, we maybe don't complain as much as like the British do. They complain by far the most, but we're up there. And you see people get together and they start moaning almost straight away because it sounds cool. It's kind of like it's cool to moan because it means that you're dissatisfied because you think the world could be a better place. But actually, I mean, there are very few places in the world where people can live as well as we do. And I keep saying to people with this, with the lockdown and everything that's happened in this country and the fact that so many people are struggling, we still have it better than so many places in the world where the government is competent and they can force you to do things. They can't. So it's great. We've got freedom in bucket loads, and we should be very, very thankful for that.
Definitely, definitely.
In fact, the one thing that gave me sort of big encouragement recently, I watched that 9/11 documentary on Netflix, and there was as part of their sort of due diligence, they have a committee that goes around almost auditing the spend of the US military, and they sort of lay bare some of the decisions that were made in sort of Afghanistan and Iraq, which were hilariously bad. Like we wouldn't even make decisions that bad. It sort of gave me certainly a little credit to go, actually, like you say, like these systems are dysfunctional all over the world. They really, really are. And it's not, it's easy. There's that sort of Yiddish expression, to a fly in molasses, the world is molasses, because we're here, we think this is only our reality and everybody else is better off, but no one is. And you just have to sort of get on with it.
All right. So what's the next step for This Is Us? Because that's what people want to know. If we're all going to get involved and we're all going to do our little bit, then how are we going to coordinate this and how does it go from here?
Cool. So, I mean, I think we sort of launched through Heritage Day, this idea of kind of doing something positive. What's happened in the last week or so, to be honest, is just us. Sort of, we've had a huge influx of a series of brands, individuals, little nonprofits, journalists, even creatives, agencies, who've all come forward and asked exactly the same thing, which is how do we help? How do we help? How do we help? And for us, it's never been a situation of going, there's we want everyone to fall in line and do exactly this. I think every time a new voice joins our platform, they bring new perspectives, new opinions. We've always been about being open source. So, what the team is currently doing is sort of collating all of these, like we call it the coalition of the willing, right? It's all these brands, individuals, etc., that have come on board. And the next phase for us is to sort of bring all these minds together and to start plotting out those next 2 to 3 months. So again, if anybody's listening is wanting to get on board, I'd urge you to reach out through the website. So in the next few weeks, as we coordinate that sort of meeting of the minds, you could certainly be one of the voices that helps shape how we build that kind of national agenda or national vision.
In other words, we're at the stage where we're still doing the architecture, and we very much want as many people with positive and constructive input to be a part of that architecture. So if you want to join up, we'll post all the links on cliffcentral.com after this discussion, and you can go and see what's available for you to help out with and for you to get involved with. And we would love to have as many South Africans, as many businesses, as many individuals, as many NGOs as possible come to the party, because this is the way we're going to take things forward. All right, listen, thank you so much, Tish. Thank you so much, Lebang. It's been a busy morning, and I think it's good to check in with people like Amy. We're going to have many more guests, and Lebang, of course, has got her own show on a Thursday where This Is Us plays an important role. You can also listen to that Thursdays live, or if you want to get the podcasts, you can get those too. So have a happy day, everybody, and let's go out there and enjoy this beautiful South African spring, because if there's anything that makes me want to get involved in stuff, it's spring. I just absolutely love it. Good mood. All right, thanks everybody. We'll check in with you tomorrow, and we'll be back here tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. too. Cheers, everybody. Bye.